Hey everybody, Matt McQueenie, Mixed Minus Podcast. It is Saturday, September 23rd, just after 2 p.m., just after summer, which ended, 2 days ago? But it's good. Today was really warm. It was nearing 80 when I was out before. Today is Sparta Day. This is the town I live in, Sparta, New Jersey, out in the far northwest of the state, near the corners of Pennsylvania and New York State and New Jersey. Not quite there, but out in that direction. And most towns will have a day in honor of that town, of that municipality. And today was ours. And I noticed around the state, there were many towns having their day today. And it's just a way for people of the community, people of the surrounding communities to come together, have some place to go, have bouncy houses for the kids, and for vendors to all set up and let you know of what they offer and all their wares. Nice thing to do. Got a lot of steps in. I'm not going to be able to work out today because I have way too much to do. I feel like Ringo Starr in that video. No more autographs. I have much too much to do. Peace and love. Peace and love. I feel like that, but I really am extremely busy. I almost couldn't even do this podcast. See, when I come into a weekend, I really look at breaking it up in a certain way and breaking it up around toddlers' naps. And we used to have 1 to 4 p.m., which would be the time that my son Liam would sleep pretty much unimpeded, would allow us to get a lot done. And I really banked on that. And that has really gone the way of the dodo a little bit, in the sense that he's going to bed more around 1:40, 1:45, and sometimes only less than about an hour and a half. So I really looked forward to that period of time being the time where I got a lot done. And a lot of it has to do with things I need brain power for. So it's not the type of things I can wait for him to go to bed at night, because at night I really want to relax. I want to have a drink or 2 or 3. And when you do that, you kind of get into a mode where you can't get a lot done. And I have a lot to get done. I want to do my podcast here, and you almost have to break things into chunks, right? So the podcast probably takes an hour. We'll see how far that goes. I usually want to work out on Saturday. And I usually have some work to do on the side. I'm just getting into my magazine articles for Newark Bound Magazine, which is a twice yearly published magazine, really nice magazine. And I typically write 3 columns for that. And I love doing it. I love being edited. I've talked about in the past. I love having professionals who have done this in their lives, who have worked for places like the Star Ledger, been editors there, and now maybe they're on the retirement track, but they still want to keep themselves in the game a little bit. And so they're editing like they would at the paper, and I get super edited. I have copy come back that I have to work on, that I have to add something here, do this. It's nice to be worked on. I almost felt like this week in sports when I actually went to the Giants-Lions game on Monday night. Thank you so much to Tim Castano, my good friend, who's been on this podcast many times. He has season tickets he shares with his brothers and his father, and I think he gets like 2 of the games a year of the 8 home games, plus obviously preseason. And he has nicely invited me to one of those each year. And it typically ends up being one of the night games, which I love because you're not missing any other games. So this one was Monday night, but there was a point in the game where Eli Manning made a mistake down by the goal line when the Giants were poised to come back. Now, they did not come back. They lost 24-10. Not a good story, not a good situation that they're in at 0-2 right now. But he made some mistakes, and it's chicken or the egg. Is it his fault? Is it the offensive line's fault? Probably a mixture of the two, but probably more the people who are holding it, which are the offensive line. But anyway, after the game, head coach Ben McAdoo really criticized Eli and said that was sloppy play from the quarterback. And so everyone was waiting to see, what is Eli's reaction going to be? And Eli went on Mike Francesa, as he does each day after games. And he gets on there, I think 5 p.m. and he's great. I mean, he doesn't give you a ton, but he sits there and he answers the questions, and he does a pretty good job with it. He sounds very polite about it. And I think he gets paid something like $280,000 for the year to do it, which is an amazing side gig if you can get it. I don't get that for the magazine, but an amazing thing if you could get it. But Mike Francesa asked him something to the tune of, what did you think about that getting criticized? And Eli said, look, I tell him to do it. I want to be coached. I want to be coached. And that's a great sentiment to come from. We all think we know we know better, we know all the answers, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes there's someone who needs to coach us, who needs to edit us. And I look forward to writing these articles to do that. But it becomes a very drawn out process because you put together your draft, you have to do all of your research, you have to try to get people to talk to, although that's been kind of difficult. I've been surprised at that. But in this coming issue, I'm going to write about technology in Newark, which is something that will surprise a lot of people. There's a lot of things going on in Newark. It's not Silicon Valley, but maybe it's Silicon Alley. Maybe it's a burgeoning scene. Anywhere where things are coming up from the ashes, there's always going to be tech involved because tech is involved in every part of our lives at this point. And it's what many of the businesses of today are built on, whether it's the backbone or whether it's the actual services that they provide. So I have to write that, but that's about a 1,200 word article. So that's always hanging over you. And then I have to write 2 other kind of smaller articles, one on sports, which will be kind of simple for me. I could probably write that without looking at much. And then actually one on bicycling or cycling in Newark. I'm going to be interested to see where I find stuff on that. But that's always kind of hanging over you. I love writing, but knowing you have to do it and knowing you have to do it on the margins of your week, on weekends, on weeknights, it becomes tough because you only have that small window to do it. So I got to do that. I want to do my podcast. I usually want to lift weights. Today I had to shower in the period of time because we had gone out to Sparta Day and brought my son out to his swim class before that. So it gets tough. And you do have a lot to do. I'd rather be in the position where you have a lot to do rather than being idle. But it does kind of create a lot of anxiety in the sense that you want to get things done. You just have so much you want to do. I have so much I want to read. I have so much I want to watch. So many games I want to watch. But it's tough. But that's okay. I just passed 4 years on this podcast. I think it was September 16th or September 17th. That would have been 4 years since I released the first podcast. Cannot believe we are at this point. Really love doing this still. If I can find the time, obviously, as I just discussed, when you have a lot of things barreling in on you, it can be tough to do. But those things you want to do, you find a way to do them. We all do. And it's a lot of fun. There's always stuff to talk about. I always think talking is the easiest medium. Writing is tough, as I talked about with the article. I got to do a lot of research. I have to actually put together coherent thoughts. I have to put together some kind of thesis, some kind of point to the article that's going to tie it all together. That takes a lot of brain power. That's tough. And you start with an empty canvas always. So that is tough. But I always think talking is just so simple. Sure, you have to do the research, but a lot of times research is life. It's just noting all the things that you go through, bookmarking different subjects you want to talk about during the week so that when you hit that chair, when you turn on the switch and you press go and you press record, you have those things ready to talk about so you can remember what you wanted to talk about, so you could tie the different things together that you remember, which is a fun thing. It's fun to write everything down that you want to talk about through the week or that you want to think about, because something you write down on Monday, you might have forgotten if you didn't write it down. And then something you write down on Friday, because you wrote down something on Monday, the thing on Friday somehow can tie together with the thing on Monday. And that to me is alchemy. That's synchronicity. That is awesome. I love being able to tie different thoughts from different time, from different platforms, from different disciplines. I like bringing them all together. That to me is the content of the future. It's curation and it's analogy. It's this equals this. It's media equaling sports, politics equaling books. It's to me, that's where it all is. So it is fun, and talking is much simpler. I often think that when people come on the podcast, a lot of times I have to convince them over time it's going to work out. A lot of times you make an ask and someone says, oh yeah, absolutely, I'd love to come on. And then they kind of go dormant again, and you got to keep following up. And then you get to the crux at times where they say, oh, what are we going to talk about? I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. And I say, you're going to be good at it. You can talk. I wouldn't have come to you if I didn't think you were someone who would be good at doing this. And then invariably they come on the podcast. I just had this with Julian Garcia of the New York Daily News, who came on a week ago from today. And we finished and he said, okay, that was pretty good. How long was it? I said 2 hours. He goes, oh my God, I thought it was going to be an hour. Things just melt. People have Why do you think therapists are in such good business? People want to talk. People want to be heard. People want to listen to others. People love eavesdropping, all that stuff. This is sanctioned eavesdropping. That's always what I love about podcasts. It's just sanctioned eavesdropping. I mean, in many ways, radio's like that too, but this is truly so because as I speak, I'm just recording this. I'm not live to the world. You're listening to this after I'm already finished with it. It's kind of fascinating like that. And I often will just allow whatever I've recorded to go out there unless I cough, which by the way is a tough thing. If you cough during a podcast, to go back through the whole episode and find where the cough happened can be tough. And oftentimes you think you got it, and then you'll be listening back to the actual episode when you want to do some marketing or post-production work, and you go, oh, there it is, and now it's out to the world. But that's okay. No big deal. But yeah, so I'm 4 years now, and I'll tell you what, gear is starting to show its age a little bit. I have great microphones. I have a great setup here. I got good software to mix it all afterwards, but it all comes down to a board, which has many channels, which is a way that I bring in all the different constituent parts into the one mix, whether it's having somebody over Skype or VoIP, or often I'll use FaceTime audio because so many people have iPhones. You can just kind of tap into that and it'll just sound as good as a microphone, or whether I'm just bringing the different microphones in this studio into one. In the summer, I did an episode with 4 people, Tim Castano, Greg Harinya, and Jonathan Griggs. And that was the first time I'd done 4 people in a long time, but that all came into the board, piped in beautifully, sound was great, but the board itself is starting to show its wear. 4 years on a board is pretty good. These boards are somewhere around $200. So, you're not killing the bank in order to get it. You're not having to rob a bank to get it. But it has these little things called, overdrive, and they're all red. It means that the systems are blowing up. And I thought the thing was gone about a week ago, or no, maybe a month ago. I thought it was finished because I'd be doing these podcasts, and then I would hear what sounded like a ship like the size of the Titanic, when their horn goes off. It sounded like that in my ears, and I go, oh my God. And I kept thinking it was the board. And it was just, it would happen every so often. Then I thought I figured it out and fixed it. And then I got on the podcast last week with Julian Garcia. He had his headphones on. I had my headphones on. It's a very good thing to have headphones on in a podcast because you feel like you're kind of in the broadcast. You feel your voice. You hear everything. It kind of raises up the quality, I think, a bit because you kind of, you become a listener and a speaker at the same time, which makes you kind of edit in real time and almost bring a story up more and just you feel like you're doing This American Life or something when you hear yourself in your ears. But we were doing the podcast, and about 6 or 7 minutes in, that Titanic horn started blaring, and I went, oh my God. And of course I have Julian here, so he's come all the way up to my house after we've tried to do this thing for like a month and a half, and I'm real worried. So I just said, just keep going. It's no big deal. I realized it was just the headphone preamp. So in order for the people who are in the studio with you to hear themselves through headphones, you have to buy something called a headphone preamp. And really what it does is it takes the output of the headphones jack on the board and sends it to this little preamp, which then allows 4 independent channels for headphones to be plugged into. So each of the people, assuming you have 4 people, can hear the mix and can actually have independent volumes. So they could each be different volumes if they need to be based on how sensitive their hearing is. So it turned out that the blaring Titanic horn was coming from the headphone preamp, and headphone preamps, really the one that everyone uses is a Behringer. It's a 4-channel headphone preamp. You see a lot of Behringer stuff out there. So I think that's gone. And what I did was I got a new one this week, Samson QH4. I could have just gotten the Behringer again, but I was like, you know what? The Samson looks kind of cool. So I have that plugged in here right now. So far, we've done pretty well with the sound. But I'm feeling like I'm getting to that position where maybe gear is going to start to go. And I've started looking upstream a little to maybe get a different board. Some things I've learned in doing this over the years where a different board might be beneficial. And we'll see if we get there. But right now I'm holding strong. I got my new headphone preamp, and everything seems to be going okay. Why upset the apple cart if you do not have to get it? The other thing that's new is I have a new podcast, which I have kind of spun off from the main Mix Minus, and the podcast is called the Monday Morning Mix Minus. It has its own feed. You can find it in any of the podcast feeds that you listen to. And really, it's not a revolutionary new show. It's sort of just carved out what was something I was doing in the main show, which was strictly sports talk, and especially strictly sports talk that's in an ongoing fashion. So the week-to-week discussions of sports, I wanted to lop those off from the main podcast because there's kind of a technical reason here, logistical reason for this. iTunes, which is still, I believe, 5-1 over Android in the amount of times people listen on that versus Android. So for every one listen on Android, there's 5 on Apple devices. It is the podcast platform of choice. Maybe that's because of how Apple markets it, pushes it, has had their own app in there for so long, has really been the place where people associated with podcasts, whatever it is, it's how people do it. So in the Apple podcast feed, where they allow you to kind of promote, push your show to the feed so people can get it through that podcast app. There's one little thing, though. They only allow about 100 episodes at a time to be sitting there. So your most recent 100 episodes. And what I noticed was when I would do these regular shows, these regular ongoing sports shows where I'd have the same guest on, where I would just talk about a random week about the NBA, a random week about the NFL and NCAA football are where this is the case. You want to talk about those on a weekly basis because you want to go against the lines, the betting odds, who's going to win, who's up, who's down. Football is enough of an event where you can do that. There's only 16 regular season games, so talking about it in the middle of a week, it really lends itself to that. It's good to allow discussion to burgeon and discussion to be open for a week. But I didn't like the fact that I would do those episodes and they would be ending up using the bandwidth or the quotient of the 100 episodes that iTunes is keeping. So I decided, let me lop those off into their own show. So people who are looking for sports can just go there and know they're going to get it in the ongoing fashion. But then for my show, my main Mix Minus podcast, you would have 100 episodes in there at a time, which are maybe more of the evergreen, the interview podcasts, the first time where I have a guest on. I also still think I'm going to use the Mix Minus podcast for the big events, like the NBA playoff episodes I do where I have Tim and Greg and Jonathan increasingly has come on that now. I'm going to do like I said, NBA offseason, NBA playoff preview, NBA regular season preview, NFL picks preview, where you pick the teams and how you think they're going to win below or above the spread, the betting line for the team's wins as Vegas sees them. So I'm still going to maintain those because those have legs to them. The weekly podcasts don't have legs beyond that next week. So I didn't like that they were eating up the entire feed from my main show, and then they're really of no use to somebody after that next week's games are finished. So that's the thinking there. So you can find that episode, those episodes, that podcast on the different feed. You can subscribe to it at the Monday Morning Mix Minus, and anybody who loves sports will understand why I did that. There's a famous saying in sports called the Monday morning quarterback, and it's where everybody comes in on a Monday, where we know the majority of games are on Sunday. Everybody comes in on Monday morning, and we all know better. We're the Monday morning quarterbacks. We're the people who come in after the fact and in hindsight can say what was the right decision the coach should have done, what was the right decision these players should have done, who's a winner, who's a bum. We all know it. Of course, if we all knew it, Vegas wouldn't be so rich because we would all be able to prognosticate what exactly was going to happen. So I like the alliteration there, the MMMM. I know it sounds like the Monday Morning Quarterback by Peter King and the Monday Morning Podcast by Bill Burr. But in my head, it was a little different. I only used it because of the initials and the alliteration, plus Matt McQueenie. There's so many MMs. And I also thought to myself, hey, if someone's looking up Monday Morning Quarterback or Monday Morning Podcast, maybe they find my show just as I use Mix Minus, which is a podcasting term. If they're searching that, they'll find my show. There is a little bit of the dark arts in that, but I think it's okay. Another thing before I get into what I really want to talk about here, which is the Apple event. Sometimes you need to be very careful with technology, which is a nice thing leading into Apple eventually. I feel like we can know too much. A few podcasts ago, I told you about my son going through potty training, and we tried to put him into a toddler bed, and it didn't work out. because the doctors told us, the pediatrician told us that you can throw too many things at them at once and then they kind of self-destruct. They kind of blow up and everything goes wrong and all of your best intentions are out the window. And so during that period of time, we have since put him back in a crib and life has gone back to somewhat normalcy. And he's also been pretty well potty trained during the day. We will still put a pull-up on during his nap and we'll still put a diaper on at night. Because we are in a crib, it's unfair to him to have to hold it if he has no means of getting out. Our lives have been okay for the moment. I know we need to move to the next stage eventually, but right now we're holding strong. You hear a lot of things from other parents who have tried to do these things and they're really struggling. Nobody's a winner. Nobody's a loser here. Nobody's better or worse. We're all on the same pathway together as parents, and we'll get where we need to go eventually, but there are hiccups and bumps along the way. But during that period of time, I had told you, the audience, that our baby monitor that we had since my son was born has since really gone to crap. It can't really pick up a signal more than 10 feet from his room, and the battery's horrendous. So it literally would like die very shortly after you had charged it up. And we had been okay with that because our son would go to bed at a predictable time and would wake up at a predictable time. He's in his crib. He's not really going anywhere. But with all those changes, we thought, okay, it's time to get something. So we had got the Nest Cam by Google, and we figured we already have the Nest thermostat in our house. Let's get the cam. It uses the same app. It's a nice little interface. You open it up. You can manage your temperature, and you can see the little camera for my son's room. You can obviously get a lot of these cameras and put them all different rooms and rename them different things, but we have the one there. So it's a cool little interface. We also have the Google Home speaker next to my bed, and I can actually tell it, because it's obviously a Google product, I can tell it to change the thermostat, turn it on, turn it off, change the temperature. You can, to a degree, do that with the Amazon Echo, but since it's not fully integrated into Google, you already have to have the Google thermostat on, and you can tell the Amazon Echo to change the temperature once it's on, but you can't tell it to turn it on or off. With the Google speaker next to the bed, you can tell it to pretty much do anything with that thermostat. So it's really cool. But we had gotten this because of these, those different aspects, and we thought, boy, why don't we get that? And I looked it up. Best Buy had a really good deal, maybe $50 off. Let's get that. It makes sense. We can just use our phone. We're not going to have to worry about battery power. We can even look at the thing when we're not home. What a cool little thing to be able to do. Somebody's babysitting. During the day when I'm at work, I can actually watch my son being put down to bed. I know it's a little creepy and Big Brother-ish to the nanny or to my mom or to my mother-in-law to know that we could be watching. And the other thing is they have an archiving feature where you can, and you get a free trial apparently at the beginning. It's run out since, but you can save up to 10 days for $100 a year or 30 days for $300 a year. You can archive 30 days back or 10 days back based on the package you want. And you can actually, it could be 4 p.m. and I can go, oh, I never saw my son being put down. I could open the app and I could rewind back to when he was being put down, see what it was like, see what he did, because you can hear everything too, and see ultimately when he woke up. You can see when he had movement. There's little blips on the time chronology where the blips mean that there's some kind of movement. Really interesting thing. And so I'm like, for me, it's great. Got to be careful with technology though. I think we might have been better off not getting this, because while I think it's neat to check in, my wife has turned it into a referendum on everybody who's watching our son, or a referendum on our own parenting. And when you can go back through time, when you can review what led to what, where he didn't sleep, why he didn't sleep tonight, you end up driving yourself nuts. So it was a couple of weeks ago, my wife and I had a nice chance to go out. We have some big intended events coming on in our family, in the coming months, hopefully, if you know what I mean. And so we thought, let's go out. Let's have a nice night out. She had brought it up. I should have brought it up. Because when you're married sometimes, and you got kids and you're many years in, sometimes you just forget those obvious things that are important, like going out. Gives you a chance to kind of reset, gives you a chance to be outside the box, to think about everything, to appreciate everything, to talk to each other without being on the hook for watching the child at the time. And it's nice. You get a couple drinks, you do all that. So a couple of weeks ago, I had set up with my mom where she would stay overnight at our house. And my wife and I would go to a great steakhouse or a great dinner place, whichever one, and we would potentially stay overnight. We weren't going to stay overnight, but I remembered that we still have the apartment, the condo, where I lived for a handful of years, basically 10 years ago now, or no, maybe 9 years ago, until we moved into our house here, which is over 6 years ago. So I lived there for about 2 or 3 years. Melany lived there with me a little bit too. My brother and his wife and his first child lived there for a little while as well after. And when we moved into this house in Sparta, my parents actually purchased that condo because the market was distressed. I had to move on to get into this house, and they thought of it as a very good investment. You could ultimately rent it, which they actually are, I think, starting right about now. You could rent it for some time, or you could keep it and then sell it when the market goes up. It's in a very good location, right on the Hudson River, overlooking the George Washington Bridge. You can't beat it. It's the most beautiful thing. I remember waking up there every day, appreciating. I would wake up, look over, turn over on my pillow, and there's the George Washington Bridge. There's the Hudson River. If you go out on your deck, you could look downtown when the leaves weren't on the trees and see all the way down to where it's now the Freedom Tower, where at one time it was the World Trade Center. You could see everything. It's awesome. It had a bus stop right out front, which would take you right into the Port Authority in 25 to 30 minutes. It was a great place. And now, right across the street, probably 0.1 miles to the right, you go out across our street and go down the right, very close, about 2 blocks, there's a River Palm Steakhouse, which is a phenomenal steakhouse with 3 locations in North Jersey, one of them right there on River Road in Edgewater. And so I realized, boy, why don't we do that? I don't really want to go paying for a hotel, because this is just going to be a normal, nice dinner out. You're already going to be paying a lot there. So I'm looking up. First, I said, let's go to Ruth's Chris down by the end of River Road, down on top of Hoboken, in Weehawken, that one right there, which is down by the Chart House. And I think there's a Sheraton right there. So I started looking at rooms, because when you go out at night and you're going to go get a nice steakhouse, you're going to drink a little bit. You don't want to have to drive after you drink. It's unsafe too. You could get pulled over. You could get tickets. You could get arrested. It's not a good situation to be drinking and driving anyway. Forget the legal ramifications. Just not a good idea. Bad things can happen. So you want to relax. You want to have drinks. You want to not have to worry. So often I'll be like, let's stay in a hotel. And so I'm looking at that hotel and I'm going, boy, this is going to be a $600 night at the end of this thing. When you count a steakhouse, a nice bottle of wine. And I always go for like the bottom bottle of wine, but that $15 to $20 bottle of wine in the liquor store is like double, $40, $50 in the really nice steakhouse. So I always get those. I'm never going higher. I feel embarrassed to buy like a Stag's Leap or whatever. I mean, it's just so much money, and it's the same wine. And after a couple sips, you're in the same place you would be with that one. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this just feels, sometimes when something just doesn't feel right, the expense of it feels like karmically something's going to go wrong. But then it hit me. I went, wait, we still have this place in Edgewater. No one's staying there. I think my parents still have the same cleaning lady we have come twice a month. Not a lot of cleaning she has to do. Why don't we do that? Oh, yeah, and the River Palm Terrace or Steakhouse is right across the street. Perfect. So we were able to get a 9 p.m. reservation, which ended up turning into like 9:45 because apparently reservations don't mean anything there. And then we stayed at the old Edgewater condo. So it was really nice because it gave us a chance for a little bit of nostalgia. We spent the early parts of our relationship in that place, and walking through those halls, it just felt, cuddly inside. It was really nice being back there. We actually saw some of the old tenants, old co-op owners we used to know there, and it was weird seeing them. You're almost sheepish trying to explain why you're there. And the only problem was they have amazing internet, but the internet was down and there was no one to get it. And I hadn't saved any shows, so we were like on our own. I'm like walking around the town, or we went to get water at a Duane Reade, or when we were walking to the steakhouse, I have like my little iPad with me because I was like, I can download some shows. It's funny what you worry about. I'm like, I could download some shows before we go into the restaurant or before we go into this. And I was like, we could have a couple shows downloaded. And then when we get back to the apartment, even though we ended up falling asleep like 5 minutes later because of the martinis and the bottle of wine, you're knocked out, and it was already really late. We got home around 11:30 or 12. So with all that focus on downloading and trying to get internet running, you don't even need it anyway. And by the way, be careful with these iPads. I guess I fell asleep when we were watching a show, and the way the iPad went into the blankets, it was still on. And when I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt for it, it was like a fire. It was like a stove. It was so hot, I thought it could have blown up. And it was just the way it was set up and the way it felt constrained and almost strangulated around these blankets, and it couldn't get the air out. However, I don't know however it does it, because it's not like you really see vents, but I guess there's a certain level of heat that's let out when it's all things being equal, and it was not being let out. It was so hot. And of course, I'm like I'm in a wine stupor at this point. I'm thinking the thing's going to blow up. I'm like, oh my God, but be careful with that. I did get a new iPad mini, the most recent one, which would have been the iPad mini 4, I think. What a difference. It's a great little device. I saw a great deal on at Staples for that. So I upsold myself into that one and then sold my old one to Gazelle for like $70. So all in, I ended up getting this one for like $200. I love it. I love the iPad mini for nighttime. It's a perfect bedtime device because it's so small. You don't feel like you're holding up this enormous tablet. And I only have the 9.7 inch tablet, the iPad Pro. I couldn't imagine if you had the 13 inch one, but the iPad mini, the most recent one, is so nice. The form factor is perfect. It's so light, and I love it for reading magazines, for watching videos in bed, as long as you don't fall asleep with it and let it get caught up in your blankets. It's not good. But anyway, what leads me back to this whole thing? My wife and I have this great night planned. My mom's going to be there. My mom's a little more laissez-faire about childcare than I think most are. I trust it. I have complete confidence and faith in it, but I don't want to see it. I just want her to do her thing. She has given us license to have our own night out. But then it hits me. As we're waiting for our table to open up, we're at the bar there at the beautiful River Palm Steakhouse in Edgewater. Awesome old-time bar. The bartenders are wearing those almost old Prohibition vest suits and just got a fantastic vodka martini. My wife got a gin martini, and we were out. I mean, you were in good shape after one of those, and it was like $25 total for the two, so that was kind of crazy, but whatever. You know, laissez le bon temps rouler. And my mom gave us a little money towards the night because she knew the importance of this night away, which was, how about the babysitter giving you some money towards your dinner? You don't get that very often. So it was just a nice time. But we're sitting there at the bar. She hooks onto the Wi-Fi in the bar and she starts watching The Nest, and she starts getting anxious because it's 9:15 p.m. and my son is still awake. She's rewinding through the feed to see why he's awake. You can rewind. You could see my mom coming in several times. You could see my mom left the light on in the room, which is a major no-no. You could see everything going wrong. And all of a sudden my wife's like, you got to call your mom and tell her. I'm like, Melany, I'm not telling my mom anything. If we didn't have this eavesdropping tool, we would not even know what's going on. We would be no worse for the wear. She's not trying to contact us. And also, I don't want to be Big Brother, like, hey mom, what's going on? I can see him awake. Like, all of a sudden you're going to alienate the person who has opted in to stay in your home for the night and watch your child so you can have a night away. So you got to be careful with technology because she is living and dying with this thing. Now, the Nest Aware, which is this 30-day or 10-day archiving, ran out. We didn't realize that it was a feature that runs out. I didn't know. I thought it was just a part of the Nest. It ran out, and so now we can only see in real time what's going on. There's a part of me that might just stick with that. It's only $100 for the year to get the 10-day archive, and really all we need is like 12-hour archiving just to see the naps and the bedtime, especially bedtime when you can see how he did through the night. But a lot of times I don't want to see what I don't want to know. It's like the things you hear in your attic in the middle of the night. I'm not going to go check on it. I don't want to know. I don't tell my wife about it. I don't bring it up. It's mice running around up there. Who knows what else? Could be bats, whatever. They'll find their way out. We got some traps up there, but I don't want to know what's going on up there. It's going to end up being like the Indiana Jones where it opens up and it's all the snakes, you know? Sometimes you want to let sleeping dogs lie. And I think when those dogs are toddlers, let it be. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this time, this intensity, and we're going to find a new intensity. We're going to find a new issue that's brought up. But you got to be careful with technology. This thing's great, but it cuts both ways because now it adds new anxieties. And I love just being able to check in and see it, but I'm acting in a read-only fashion. I don't want to take action on what I'm seeing. And my wife is more activist. She wants to take action on what she sees. When we woke up, final story on this, when we woke up in the morning in that Edgewater co-op condo, the first thing she does is opens up and looks at the feed, and it's like 7:30. My son gets up at like 6:30, 6:45. We have him out of bed at 7. We open this thing at 7:30. He's dancing. He's singing. He moves side to side. He does this thing where he kind of hits his head against the slats of the crib. The doctor says it's fine, that he won't go harder than he naturally would to get hurt. I don't know if I believe that anymore because this kid hits hard, but anyway, that's what they say. He's doing that. It's 7:30. My mom is nowhere to be seen. My guess is she's asleep, and all of a sudden Melany's like, "You got to call your mom and tell her." And I'm like, "Oh geez, this isn't how we deal in my family." So what I did was I called and I pretended like I didn't see it. I'm like, "Mom, how's everything going?" And of course she goes, "Oh, everything's good. I'm just here with him. Everything's good." So she was trying to cover for herself, even though we could see she wasn't around. So that's okay. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Did he make it through? Did he make it okay? He sure did. Did his grandmother make him pancakes the next morning? She sure did. Everything's fine. But be careful with technology sometimes. It cuts both ways. Speaking of technology, Apple announced all of their new stuff this year. They do it every year in September, and they have different announcements throughout the year, but the September event is the big one, and this one was very big. New announcements, new product announcements, updates to products. Well, actually, not new product announcements. It's more iterations to products we already know, but iterations that are very exciting. It is the 10th anniversary of Apple's iPhone. Steve Jobs, back in 2007, brought out this thing which has changed markets, which has changed lives, which has changed the world in many ways, which has changed the way we interact with the world and the way we interact with ourselves. We're never bored. We're never idle. And I don't know if it's good activity to always be in our phone, but these things have been like the crack that dealers try to get you hooked on and try to have customers for life. That is this thing. I mean, there's a reason the old BlackBerry was called a crackberry. People are addicted to it. People are addicted to constant communication without meaningful communication a lot of times. It's being hooked into everything without having to be active in those discussions. But Apple came out and they announced something I'm excited about. They announced a couple of things. Some new iPhones. There's an iPhone 8, which is pretty much the iPhone 7 with some new additions, which I'll get into. The iPhone, it's written as X, but it's supposed to be 10. So you say 10, wait, there's an 8 and a 10? Where's the 9? The 9 is nowhere. The reason it's 10 is because it's for the 10th anniversary of the first iPhone. Very weird, but it's shown as iPhone X, which is, of course, the Roman numeral for 10. That is the one everyone's going to want. That is the one that has all the different aspects going on that are going to change our views on iPhones. And the reason I say views, because this thing, and here's Melany. Do you want to come and talk about the iPhone?
You want me to?
That's fine. You want to go over here? So Melany just came in with that one. So Melany just came in with some coffees from Cloveberry. This is our new little board here. Let's see if you can hear. Can you hear yourself?
Yes.
Oh, wait, can we?
Yes.
I don't hear you very well. You're able to hear you're able to hear yourself okay? Okay. So, I meandered about a lot of things, but I'm here about the iPhone, the new Apple announcement. Now, you are, by extension, a major Apple early adopter, but not because of your own being. It's because of being with me.
Yes.
You have all the products before a lot of people, and I don't even think you realize you have them. So, before I talk, what have you picked up about what Apple announced on a week and a half ago? No, it's okay if you don't know. I'm interested because you are by extension hooked into technology, but I'm very hooked in. Like, I know everything that was announced, but I'm interested to know what, if anything, you picked up or have gleamed in your goings on about your day about the new Apple products. Anything?
Just because of what I hear from you.
Yeah. So I was saying the new iPhones that were announced, there's an iPhone 8 and then there's an iPhone 10.
Right.
The iPhone 8 is like the one we have, which is an iPhone 7 Plus. So there's the 7 and the 7 Plus, the 8 and the 8 Plus, and really they're just iterations on what we have. The big thing is this this wireless charging.
Right.
So they're made of glass completely, which I think scares you,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
And
it does.
because you've actually smashed some phones. You haven't done it with this one, but which I've been impressed with because I've scratched up the face of my phone quite a bit on this one, and you've done okay.
And the only reason I think I have the issue with phones is that I don't use a purse, even though I have them.
But isn't it funny that keep that close to you? Isn't it funny that on this phone, I forced you into just getting a very minimalist case, the little leather case, and you've almost been better off with that than you were with the full wallet case, which you had on the old one. That made you drop stuff.
Yes, I guess it did. Yeah, I don't know if that made me drop it. I don't know. Might have, yeah.
I think it did because you got money, you got like credit cards. It turned into just a monstrosity of something. So you are almost at, well, no, you're not at the time where you can get a new one yet. But is there anything about the iPhone that you have that you feel like it's lacking, or does it do everything for you that you need?
No, I guess the one thing is that bothers me just about it is just the earphones thing.
The normal earpods.
Because I must just have a strange shaped inside of my ear where AirPods don't fit
or earpods. Both of them, right? The normal earbuds don't work for you
either. Earbuds don't work for me either, right?
Which is annoying because I tried to get you AirPods and it didn't work. I think that they're an absolutely...
No, it's a great thing, but they just didn't stay in my ear. One does, but the other one doesn't.
The other thing that drives me nuts for you is the Touch ID doesn't work for you.
Well, yeah, right.
And why? I don't know why that is. Must be your skin or something.
I guess it's just because in the wintertime, my skin just gets so dry, my fingertips especially, so that just doesn't...
But even now, or you just don't try to use it now? When it's nice out?
I don't think it does recognize it now, but I don't know. Maybe it's because it changes all the time.
Well, to me, that was a revolutionary thing, which I didn't think was going to be. I thought that the Touch ID would be an impediment to getting the phone open, but it actually becomes automatic because you turn your phone on by hitting the home button and then it just turns on and it's perfect. I can make purchases with it. I can download apps with it. I really like it. It's very good for Apple Pay, even though Apple Pay is even better for the watch. So there's nothing with the iPhone where you're like, oh, I wish it did this, other than those couple of earbuds.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. No.
And we'll get into the iPhone, but with the watch, I kind of forced the watch on you through a birthday present.
No, it was Christmas.
It was Christmas.
Yeah.
Because we get these things where my mom will go, what do we get her? Or what should we get her on this? Sometimes it's hard. And I think often you just got to go with Old Faithfuls. Like you're fine with that.
I just think that you just show love through technology.
But I think you were skeptical of it. But the watch has really worked for you, right?
Sure.
You really have come to, it's become, you never would go a day without wearing it, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you like it for exercise. Mm-hmm. You like it for notifications.
Right.
Taking some calls, doing some texts. I think it's good for a kid because it allows you to stay up to date on different things without having your phone out because the kids see the phone and all of a sudden it's their phone. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing on that really would make you want to upgrade. There's nothing that with the watch where you're going, oh, I just wish it did this. I think I wish it stayed charged for days.
Yeah, charge, or I think sometimes if I had, if there could be some sort of little mini keyboard that came up for texting.
So, yes, the one thing I've realized, and I didn't know this until I was there was a period of time with our son Liam where we had to be in the room with him when he was going to bed. And we've only just started to break some chains from our bedtime activity where we're actually locked in a prison that is him for about an hour when he goes down, where we constantly have to yell, I love you back at him. And he yells, I love you at us to see that we're there. And we finally broke the chain last night, knock on wood. We'll see if that works out. We just didn't answer him. He cried a little and then went down. But I remember it was a time we had to be in his room and I can't really have my phone. I had my watch and you were texting me.
Right.
And you obviously can use Siri to talk back to somebody, but it has a little drawing pad and you can actually draw letters out, which I'll have to maybe show you. It's actually pretty seamless. So you can draw words out, which is almost easier than a keyboard.
Oh, I think I remember this, yeah. But still, that's not... Because sometimes you just want to have one response, and the canned responses they have aren't always appropriate.
We'll have to... But yeah, no, there's the canned, but then the little
I understand what you're saying.
And I can even write letters quick, and then it'll mostly be pretty good with them. So, all right, we'll get through some items. The iPhone 10, which as I said has spelled with an X. Why are we going from 8 to 10? Because it's the 10th anniversary of Apple. This one could be a game changer. There's no more home button. The entire device is a screen. The entire device, just like the 8, is glass. But there's no like sides or really top. No home button. And how does it turn on? By looking at your face. That's kind of cool. So facial recognition. It has to see your eyes. So someone can't just like put the phone up to you while you're asleep and then it turns on. Does this interest you in any way?
I don't think so. I mean, it's a cool concept, but I mean, I guess it's helpful. Like on my last phone, the home button fell off, which is crazy. And then I knew that happened to somebody else, and they said that supposedly when it's used a lot, that can happen, which seems a little crazy. But so maybe that would be beneficial. It just also, I think it's going to make people look a little strange too.
The other cool thing is this phone is apparently about the size.
So but I'm sorry, but how do you make it get into the mode of it recognizing, like it to be on for it to see your eyes? You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's probably a just like when you have to do the
buttons?
touch. Well, there's probably no. I think once, just like with the phone now, when you pick it up, it comes on.
Yes.
But there's probably just like with Touch ID, where you have to go through that whole initiation process where it learns your whole finger. There's probably something like that with your face.
Right.
And so I guess when you turn it towards you, the light comes on, then it looks at you. It has this thing called a notch at the top, which is driving people kind of nuts. So this, as I said, the whole front is a screen. There's really no sides, no top, no bottom. It's all a glass screen. It's about the size of the normal iPhone. So not the Plus.
Right.
The 7 or the 8, that size. But the screen is like 0.3 inches bigger
just because
than
of
the
glass,
Plus.
right?
Because the whole thing is pretty much screen, so it gets rid of a lot of, however it works. To me, that's really cool because...
You know what else is kind of annoying though? Like say, for instance, sometimes you use somebody else's phone if your phone's not by you. So that means you have to have the other person activate the phone before you can use their phone.
Yeah, although I would have to assume there's got to be the number thing too that pops up. But we don't want, you don't want, maybe it'll have to learn your face like mine on my phone, or maybe you just can't use my phone, or I can't use your phone anymore to call the Mexican place. So I kind of think that's really cool, and the screen being full. But the thing that's kind of driving people nuts is this notch. So the notch is there because it has the different cameras and I guess speakers and stuff that are needed for this facial recognition. So if the whole thing is a screen, then where is the part that is going to recognize your face or use those cameras? It's at the top of the phone. And so when you use the phone and then you turn it sideways in the landscape view, if you're watching a video, it'll go all the way to the end and the notch is in the way of the video because it's in front of because the screen the notch only sticks out from the top there.
Okay.
And so it's driving people kind of nuts. And then when you look in Safari, it actually adds white bars to the side, which is kind of un-Apple and annoying. So people are being driven nuts a lot about the...
and there's no way to get rid of it?
No, because it's there for the facial recognition. So that's kind of making people a little nuts. But I think like all this, we get used to it. It just becomes what it is. This thing has Super Retina HD, which you never know. It's much more intense, the view of everything. But like anything, I think the first time you get the new iPhone for like 2 or 3 days, you go, whoa, this is amazing.
Right.
But you acclimate to it, and then it is what you end up having.
Right.
It'll last 2 hours longer than the iPhone 7. And I think the charging thing is really neat. Now you have to buy a different charger for it, but I like the idea that you can just stick the phone down on something.
So it doesn't come with anything?
Well, it comes with the lightning charger like we normally have, but it doesn't come with any wireless charging pad solution, which is kind of dumb. But the new devices, so the new iPhone, because of this glass, the glass back is what allows it to charge somehow this way. And I've heard, what about if you have a case or whatever? So I guess that's going to be
Right.
That'll have to be seen, but I'm sure that must work. And of course, Samsung people will tell you we've had this forever already. It's like, we know, but when Apple does it, it really makes a difference. So I'm excited about that. If I can buy the thing, because now if you want to, you can plug in earphones again when you're going to bed and still have your phone charging without having to have a whole nother adapter. But there's also a lot of complexity here, right? I mean, does this all, as I'm saying this to you, is this making you more apt to buy it, or more like I'm going to stay where I am because this is just a lot of stuff going on right now?
I don't think it's making me want to go out and buy it right now. No, not necessarily. No.
Is that Apple's problem though? That these amazing things come out and they're not able to really explain it very
I don't
well?
even think it's that as much as it just seems like there's always something coming out, which is great for some people. I know that makes you excited, but it doesn't make everybody excited. So I feel like, it's kind of like overkill sometimes.
The really interesting thing, the Super Retina HD display is sourced from Samsung. So
Right.
Samsung actually is the one who provides those that glass for Apple. So it's weird with the competition with the different companies that they have to use different things from each other. So I keep, I jump the gun quick, because when I run into my time where I can upgrade, it's going to be real hard, because the 8 is out already. As of yesterday, it came out. And then the 10 isn't open for pre-order until the end of October and isn't out till early November.
But why are they see, I don't understand that.
I think it's because there's not enough capacity right now. I think they're going to be under-resourced with it, sort of like with the AirPods, where...
So what's under-resourced, the 8 or the 10?
The 10. And I think a lot of people are saying that's why they came out with the 8 at the same time. So people have something to fall back on to get that's new, because the 10 is the groundbreaker. If they could have the 10 in the amounts needed, I think everyone would go buy it. But I think they're having difficulty with this whole new phone, with this whole new setup, having the Samsung screens come in. I don't know if they're going to get it up and running in time to get it, which is going to be a pain, because I might come up against that period of time. And November is basically where my early jump off is paid off on the phone I have, and I'm going to go get it, and you're not going to be able to get it.
Right.
And that's a major problem.
When can you pre-order it?
Late October.
So can you pre-order it even though you're not due, or not really?
I think you could. I think my time would be, my payments might be pretty much done by then.
Are you desperately wanting a new phone?
Not desperately wanting. Like, I wouldn't just jump to the 8 right now. Although in 2 days I'm going to come home and be like, all right, I got the 8. And I paid off the old one.
Right.
That's the problem. I don't think there's enough. Again, the wireless charging is really neat. But
you know what, though? You used to have that power mat I got you.
The power mat, yeah.
And then you didn't use it anymore.
Yeah, but the power mat still had to plug in. It wasn't like you just put the phone down on the mat.
Right.
Remember, it had those little things?
Yeah.
No, the wireless charging is pretty cool. And I think there's certain cases that you could get which provide wireless charging. But the Super HD is neat. I want that one because I like the idea of having the smaller form factor with the bigger screen. I think that's really kind of neat. So the phones are there. The Apple Watch Series 3, the big announcement with that is it has a version with built-in cellular. So your watch
doesn't have to be by your phone.
Your watch doesn't have to be by your phone.
I like that idea.
Why?
Because I don't always have my phone by me.
But,
and if it's showing me that someone's calling and I go to pick it up, I can't pick it up because my phone's not close. Or if I'm trying to check an email or something like that, it doesn't.
Now, if you're in Wi-Fi, though, the phone basically can pick up. Where this is big, and I don't know if this is worthwhile to you, but you could leave the house without your phone. You could go for a run without your phone. Isn't it funny how, like, we never go for runs outside, but and I don't think a lot of people do, but all anyone always worries about is like, well, if I have to go for a run outside, it's so annoying I have to bring my phone. And it's like, maybe we're going for a run outside once a month. And I worry about that. But the thing that drives me nuts with this, you have to pay more money to your existing data plan.
Oh.
So it's $10 more a month to onboard that device. Now you get 3 months for free, and they're apparently waiving. There's of course an activation fee for some reason that could be as high as $30.
Yeah.
they're waiving that and they're giving you 3 months free. I hate when people give you something free that you have to pay for eventually, because what's the use of, it's not like me using it. I go, oh, this is going to change everything.
Yes.
And you also can't just stream everything. So the big thing with this is, oh, I'm going to go for a run. I can stream Apple Music. I don't need my iPhone. My watch has built-in GPS, so I can do the workout on it, and I could stream music. But one, you can't stream from any other app right now. Apple doesn't even have their podcast app on there, which is so stupid that they still haven't had their podcast app on that, because podcasts are such a big thing people listen to. And two, I hate streaming things from cellular. I hate it. Whether it's music, podcasts, obviously video, which you can't do on this, but like that to me drives me nuts. It's like the original conundrum with the iPad. Remember when the iPad came out at first and it was like, oh, you could get cellular on it.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember this, but my first iPad I have, which we still have, is a cellular iPad. Uh-huh. And I think the cost on that was like 500 megabits was like $15, and like 2 megabits was $30 a month.
Right.
And I thought, oh, that's cool. But then you realize, and I've never done it again, then you realize I don't need cellular connection on my iPad.
Right.
There's Wi-Fi in enough places, and I like the idea of downloading what I need for when I'm outside of Wi-Fi. And if, God forbid, I need to hook on, you use your phone as a hotspot. Right. So that kind of drives me nuts. That's where I wish the Apple Watch would get to, where you don't need the cellular in order to get content. Because when you stream that Apple Music on your watch when you go for a run, it's pulling down from your data.
Right.
You're paying $10 to allow it to do that, and then it's pulling down from your data anyway.
Right.
So that part kind of pisses me off.
I'm sorry.
So you would not necessarily get this watch because of the $10, because of the...
We already pay too much money.
We everything. Do. Yeah. And we jumped up to like 16 gigs, and I don't even know if it's true 16 gigs, because somehow we run through our data still. Like, I think they're making it all up.
I don't know.
Now,
maybe it's Liam.
It could be. But like the watch, but the watch makes that worse, because there's no way. What I want from the watch, this thing is 16 gigs now, the new one, the 3. The ones we have, yours might be 4, but you have original, it's 4 or 8, mine is 8.
Right.
And 8 gigs is pretty good storage. That's like a little iPod. 16 is really good storage. What I want from this, and I don't understand why I would even need a phone to do this, I want to be able to download things to the watch. I want to go and download a podcast in a podcast app I listen to the watch, have it download. It has the progression of how it's doing, and it's done. And then I go for a run and I'm listening to my downloaded content as opposed to streaming it. That part makes zero sense to me. And why only Apple Music? I don't understand why Apple can't open the watch up to other services. It doesn't make sense. It feels to me like these cell phone services are like, oh, here's our next way to make more money, just like the iPad did. And I don't think a lot of people use cellular iPads anymore. Now, your phone doesn't have, or your watch doesn't have waterproofing. Is that important to you? Mine does, and the 3 obviously does.
No.
Would you like to go swimming with that?
No.
The speed is much faster. There's one, now it's $400 too.
What is?
The one with the LTE.
Oh, really?
The new one. The one, there's a new one that doesn't have the LTE, but has all the new guts and the new quicker processing, which is apparently a big deal. Much faster, 70% faster. That one is $329. But I mean, apps haven't gotten good enough on the watch
I agree.
To where you're dying for.
Or also, there's so many times too where I'm downloading emails, or I'm trying to look at emails, and it's saying that, I can't display this content on the watch. I have to,
that actually, that can drive you nuts. The new one, Siri, can talk back to you on it too, as opposed to you just talking to it. Don't know what a big deal that is. Here's my big thing. They're close, and I don't know if this is why it's, as I say, half pregnant, this whole LTE plan. I don't know if this is why they're doing it this way, where certain things are allowed in the LTE. You still need a phone in order to get the Apple Watch with LTE. I don't know if it's because the technology is not there yet, or because they're actually trying to stop this from happening. But I would almost get to the point where I would just get the watch. What about just getting the watch and not having a phone?
No.
Why?
Because you look at your phone for things all the time.
But what about if you had a tablet and then you're saving money on data, you're saving money on cellular, and you could still do everything. If you had AirPods, you can talk to people. This could Bluetooth to your car.
I don't have AirPods. I don't like it. I don't think that's a good idea.
But I could do it.
Okay, Matt, good luck.
Well, here's the thing. Insurance companies, car insurance companies might even urge you to do that. You can't look at something. You can't look at your phone.
Yeah, but you're still looking at your watch.
Yeah, but you're not looking at it as much because, like, what are you going to look at it for? Maybe notifications. Maybe you take calls. I just need an audio device. Really, that's how I think of my phone. I don't read a ton on my phone.
I think people have just gotten too used to a phone.
They have, but do you think that is a threat? If you have, I mean, look, I have 2 iPads.
I understand that.
If I have iPads and I just need to be in Wi-Fi to use those,
I think it depends on the person. I think if someone, you don't like to talk on the phone anyway, which is funny that you do a podcast because you don't even like to make a haircut appointment. But I think some people use the phone too much. And I know you're saying you can use the AirPods, like if you have to take a private phone call, then it's like adding another step. And I can't have AirPods with my ears. And some people don't want to buy AirPods.
Well, they should have shipped with AirPods.
I just don't think it's a good idea.
The new Apple Watches can also go on that wireless charging. As can there's apparently an AirPod case which can go on the wireless charging. So you can have this whole thing of wireless charging devices. So that's interesting. I saw somebody say, which is a good point. There was a rumor that Apple would eat the cost of the data. So you already have to have a phone to get this for it to be operational. And an existing plan.
For the watch to be.
For the watch, yeah. And an existing plan. You already have to have one. So there was a hope that Apple would just eat that $10 a month for users to get really good uptake on these. Or even, like we never give Amazon enough credit for this, but you remember with our original Kindles, they ate the AT&T charge. You would be in 3G.
Right.
You could download your books. Now, it's not enormous files being downloaded, but you could download your book. And Amazon made that deal with AT&T. Like that's the kind of thing Apple should be doing. They have so much money hanging out there or overseas or wherever. They should be barreling it back kind of into that stuff. So there's nothing on those devices where you're just like have to get it, right?
No, but I'm a different person than you are.
You're a normal person though. You have all of the stuff. You use all of the stuff and you're not even in a place where you're just like, I have to.
No.
I have to have it.
I'm sorry.
iOS 11 came out. You got that too. We downloaded that. Have you noticed anything where you went, oh, or has it just felt very similar to what you had before?
I think everything always kind of feels similar, but I think the font is a little funky.
Well, I don't like when you go.
I think it looks kind of elementary.
It looks like my dad's phone, like where he has the super size on everything. Like I actually, you hit a point which I don't like. When you open your mail now, I know it's my mail. Why does it say inbox? Like it takes up 2/3 of the screen at the top and it writes inbox.
Right.
And it's not even like when you swipe it up to go away, that it goes away and when it remembers to come back. I don't understand that. It's like where Apple Music is gone, their podcasts, everything is like, you are all dumb. We're going to make it really big like your children. I like things that are more stylized and like using the retina screen so they're
it'd be
smaller.
Kind of cool if it could be just more customizable, I guess.
Yeah, that part is really, I don't like that.
The other day, and this was after I had downloaded the new iOS, I was on the phone with someone, and then I guess somehow, like, how people butt dial, I face dial sometimes.
Really?
So all of a sudden, I'm assuming this is the only way it happened because my phone was to my face. It added a call from one of my contacts.
So you did a conference call with people?
Right. And the problem is that it wasn't with a person. I think it was with like a pharmaceutical company.
Oh my God.
So somehow I added the call. So I never merged it with the other person I was talking to.
You need the code to open your phone too.
Right. But my phone was open. I just answered,
just used it.
and was
oh my
talking
goodness.
to this person. And then it was frozen. So then I was looking at my phone and when you can, if it's like on, like a different screen. You can see the green screen at the top and you can tap it. It wouldn't let me tap. I couldn't get out of anything. So like this automated system is just going and going, going. I was trying to do the double tap and like, whatever that's called. I forget. When you're swiping away.
You're flicking away, multitask?
Yeah, the multitask, right. And so I eventually just had to shut down my phone.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
And then the automated thing is talking to one of your friends and it's like, what's going on here?
Well, luckily it didn't merge the call.
No,
but how embarrassing could that have been?
That's weird. Yeah, that's weird. Now, it's a very big update for the iPad. And you're not a big iPad user. You use mine sometimes. Mm-hmm. But it adds all this stuff. Like, it doesn't have the bottom dock anymore with the things, with the different apps like Mail and Message or Safari just sitting on the bottom. It now kind of hovers above the screen at the bottom. And you could be in any app and flick that up, and then it's hovering over that app. The multitasking in this one is crazy.
And I think what's also funny is that I feel like I don't often know about any of these updates unless you tell me about them.
That's bad, right?
That is bad.
I went to the coffee place where you just got our coffee from now, Cloveberry, the other day, and I saw someone who I know there very well, and he has the large iPad Pro. And I said to him, he's very deep into Apple world, very deep. Like the iPhone, he had the watch, he didn't like the watch, turned it in, has the iPad Pro. And I said, oh, did you get the update? He goes, what? The update came out? Mm-hmm. He didn't even know.
Right.
Like you have to be like in the know, following stuff.
Right.
To know it's out.
I'm surprised they don't just send an email.
That's true. I mean, maybe at some point, or even do like a notification that pops up on your phone.
Right.
Like Apple,
like in settings,
the new ones here,
yeah.
because and the uptake's been pretty good as it is. I guess you'd know eventually, but there's a couple of things that, like I said, the iPad's a big deal. The multitasking on is crazy. Like you can have 2 different screens. You can have one thing popped up over both screens. So that's cool. I guess you can drag and drop from different places. So it's very good for the iPad. There's a couple of little things that I had forgot about, but that appeared to me. And they're little use cases you would never really think about until you do it. I was at the gym the other day, and I'm at a new gym. And so my phone doesn't have the wireless network in the gym. Uh-huh. So I went to the front desk and I said, what's the password? StayFit 2013. So if anyone can find it, it's like an Easter egg here where you go. But so I put that into my phone, and then I went downstairs to go on the cardio machine. And on the cardio machine, I use my iPad to read while I'm working out. And I was like, oh, let me put it in onto this device now. And this little prompt showed up, almost like how that AirPod prompt looks, where it like comes up on your screen. And it said, would you like to share the Wi-Fi password from this device onto this device? I went, oh my God, I forgot that that's a feature.
Right.
So without having to input passwords again, it can tell when your other devices are near you and just automatically does that.
I noticed, speaking of that though, today I was out and I was somewhere where the network usually comes up, and you have to like accept the terms. And I usually don't have to open anything, or maybe I go to open it and it automatically takes you to that screen. That wasn't happening this time. And it said I was connected to that Wi-Fi, but I guess I really wasn't. So, and then I couldn't figure out how to do it. And so the only way I remembered is I just remembered like what part of the URL was, and then I just tried it and then it worked. But that was bizarre. And it was telling me that it was, it could have been a security risk. So that's just from this new, I've never had that problem before, but maybe it's just,
there's a lot of security things in the new iOS too, where they're trying to bump advertisers out of the remembering your cookies and all that stuff.
Yeah, right.
So who knows if that happened. That actually reminds me of this coffee place too. I spend a lot of time there. They have a Wi-Fi network that's pretty good. I'm always remembered on it, but in order to be in the network, you almost have to go through this convoluted thing.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, at there?
No,
okay.
No, but I'm just saying that's what I had to do. I was joined, but I wasn't in the network. Yeah,
so this one is really weird. It's the only time I've ever seen this. It routes you to Facebook first, to their Facebook page, and you have to check in to get it. And I never want to check in because I don't want everybody work to know that I'm sitting there at 9 a.m. waiting out the traffic.
Right.
So I always skip it. But the thing that's annoying is I'll get in there on a new day, and it has me hooked into the Wi-Fi, and nothing is prompting me that it has to go through that step. So I'll be there like 20 minutes. I'm like, what a quiet day. There's like no emails or anything. Right. And then you'll refresh something, and then all of a sudden it's like the check-in, and you're like, and you skip check-in, and then all of a sudden all the emails flow into your device. But I thought that was very cool, the sharing of the Wi-Fi. A cool thing for the AirPods, you know how like I've showed you that thing where you double tap it and it can do something? Now you can have independent double tapping. So like on the one on the left, you can have it play or pause. On the one on the right, you can tell it to go back a song or forward a song or elicit Siri. So that's kind of that is kind of a cool thing. Screenshots are really cool now on it too. So, you know, if you want to screenshot something, I screenshot you the LeBron James thing today. So if you take a screenshot on your phone, a little thing pops up at the bottom of the screen where you could tap it, and then you can edit the screenshot right there and then save the edited thing to your camera. So that's a new thing. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. The control center's weird, right?
See, I think you just enjoy it more, and I'm the worst person to really talk about it because it's not like I'm dumb with using the
thanks.
phone.
We're only 30 minutes into you being here.
No, but in terms of since you use your devices way more than I use them, you know all these things, and it makes a lot of sense. Like that screenshot thing, that is useful and cool, but I didn't know that.
Well, and I remembered it from back in June when they announced this stuff, but a lot of times the thing has to pop up in your everyday use to realize it, like the Wi-Fi thing. And it's weird that I happen to be in a new gym at the same exact time that this came out to see that.
Right.
The screenshot thing was big. The final thing I wanted to talk about, they announced, because we're getting a little reprieve here. Is he still down?
I have no idea.
I hope so. Usually you can hear him banging from down here. New Apple TV. This drove me nuts because Apple had gone a long time without announcing a new Apple TV product from that original little box we have down here. Then, like last year or maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, I don't remember how close it is, they announced the big one, and that's the one we have in the living room. And that it was it. It was going to change TV. It was going to do all this. And so you're thinking, all right, I'll get that one because they take forever to release Apple TV products anyway. So we'll have good lead room on this. And then the other day, they announced a new one. And it's the same exact thing, except it has 4K. Do you even know what 4K means?
No.
Right? Like, apparently it's just a whole new level of viewing. You need special.
Sounds like 4,000.
Yeah, but it's like we went from 3D to 4K, you know,
right,
or to HD. Like, so that's the big update, and this is what drives me nuts about Apple sometimes when they just come out with a product because they feel like they have to, and they're thinking, how do we come out with a new one? What do we add? And they're like, 4K. We can add 4K, and like they're not creating great stuff,
right,
in the process.
So what's 4K?
It's just an insane level of HD.
Had no idea.
And so here's the other thing. The iPad Pro I have apparently can see things in 4K if it's allowed. Something new I learned through this, and the new iPhone 10 X, whatever, X Pro, you know, the new iPhone 10 has this HDR, as it's called, capability too. Others don't. I found out, I didn't realize there was another tier to Netflix.
Another what?
Tier. There's apparently tiers in Netflix that you pay monthly. So of course I did it for like, I'm going to do it for like 1 month to see how this works, but you pay $35. No, I'm just kidding. So we started with Netflix paying $7.99 a month years ago when they just had the streaming and the streaming wasn't that amazing.
Right.
Then we got bumped up to the $9.99. Fine. They need to be able to pay for all this original content they're doing. They do a great job. And that's the one we're at. And so I saw, because I look at the App Store a lot to see when pending updates are coming on apps, especially when a new iOS comes out. And I saw Netflix had a new one, and then it said 4K availability for premium members. I went, what? There's premium members? So I log on to Netflix. There is. Apparently we were on a plan that allowed HD on two and can have 2 concurrent screens at a time playing Netflix. And then for $11.99, there's 4K video, but it's only available on Netflix titles because not everybody's rolled this out yet. And it's allowed 4 devices at one time. And I even found out there's still a $7.99 one in SD, and it only allows 1 at a time. So I'm now like watching I'm like watching all these like Netflix shows to try to see like, oh, is this 4K? But then you're on you're on an iPad device anyway.
Right.
But this is the problem. It's all so confusing.
Right.
And Apple was simple. It just did the right thing, and you used it, and it made sense. You knew how flicking worked. You knew how all this worked without having to think that hard. And now it's like you're thinking, do I buy a new Apple TV? Which I'm not. I'm not going to do it because I'm fine with what I have. But you're trying to convince yourself, well, Apple told me they have this new device. Do I want it? And then you have to convince yourself why you want it because it doesn't feel like that much of a jump. And then you got to like look around and do research to see who has 4K anyway. And Apple's like, well, we'll sell 4K for a certain price. And it drives you nuts.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you even need that? I don't even think you know how to run the Apple TV, right?
That's nice of you to say.
No, I'm not saying it meanly. I mean, do you know how to run our digital stuff? Like our digital television products?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, a little. I mean, it's
but once again, I don't use them as much.
You know what the sad thing is? I don't get to either.
So now you're just saying, I don't either, so you should know.
No. I'm saying like we don't get to do much of that. It's a very
But you use it more than I do.
So it brings me to one point. Can we say one more thing?
Okay.
Is that okay? Every so often, I don't know if you think about this, I think about other women. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. No, it's way nerdier. I think about other television providers.
I understand that. You often think of that.
I always look for ways to just flip it and to like turn our lives around. And all of a sudden we're like, we're turning the ship around and everything's good. How does this new thing sound, by the way? Sounds okay?
Yeah, you just sound really loud.
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you have your own.
Well, I didn't.
How's that? Is that better?
I guess so.
So this is the new headphone preamp.
Okay.
Yeah, I had you up there. You should have told me. I'm not really that loud. It's just your independent volume. Anyway. So I'll run through that thing in your head and I'll do the research to say, how do I get us? Because cable feels so expensive.
It does.
How much do we pay for cable? I mean, how much do you think we pay for our triple play?
$170.
$175.
Yeah, I thought it was that.
And I'm not saying that you're doing anything wrong. Mm-hmm. It's okay. So that's without HBO. That's without Showtime.
Right.
That's without all these things that we steal from parents and former apartments and all kinds of stuff. Our cable bill should really be $230, which is insane. If we paid for what we actually use, and then you have to add in Netflix and Hulu and all these, and we really should be paying $250 a month. And right now we're probably paying the $175 for triple play, and then the different things, we're probably up around $210. And you're just like, that seems like such a waste.
Yes.
And so you go and do the research. I go through all the products that are available in streaming, because the only way to save is really to cut the cable part, which is going to be hard too, because you get a deal by being in triple play, and all of a sudden your cable jumps up.
Right.
I mean, sorry, your internet jumps up because the cable's not there.
Right.
We have to have this phone. Can we talk about the phone? Do we need the phone anymore? Are you sure?
I like having a phone. Why? How much is that really adding?
It can add like $30 or $40 a month.
I don't know. I think I've just always grown up with a phone, and like someone like my mom, she has to have a phone because of her poor cell service there. Oh
yeah. Well, that's fine that she does. So
I also like her phone number.
So I'm doing the research. Yeah, it's a very good one. Anyone who wants to leave a mess. No, I'm just kidding. So we're $175 right now. I'm not going to consider the streaming stuff because we would have the streaming stuff if we didn't have this anyway. So we're at, $175 a month. If we took away cable, we're at $100 a month. And so you're thinking to yourself, does $75 a month saved make a huge difference?
Mm-hmm.
On its own, it does. But then you have to look, which I did because I always want to make it happen. And it's so hard because we do not watch. Enough. It's nice to know the cable's there, but we don't use it at all.
Right.
But then the minute you take it away, you realize that you use it for sports, all kinds of things, and then you run into the things.
So what would you get with no cable?
So here's where it gets funny. Well, here's the other thing. $65 to $70 with just internet. Mm-hmm. If we didn't have a phone. Mm-hmm. But as I wrote in my notes, would be much better, but my wife wants us having a phone. So YouTube TV is one. Looks really good.
No. That's you're not answering my question.
Well, what we get is what we have now.
If we took away cable.
If we took away cable, we can watch Netflix, we can watch Hulu.
But like what stations do you get? Nothing.
There's no more stations.
No more TV.
There's no more TV, which
No
by
more
the way,
news.
which we have to take in consideration.
No more PBS.
No, but we get those through other services.
Yeah, I guess. But you mean you have the app.
Yeah.
Right.
Or then, Amazon has Daniel Tiger.
Right, but then you have to buy that stuff.
No, we have it though. I mean, we would have to get it
them?
For new stuff.
Right.
But like there's 7 seasons of Daniel Tiger on there already.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I like
There's
it.
YouTube. Here's the problem.
What?
We have 3 older women, and our one nanny is not as old. She's very young seeming. But we have 3 people who are with our son during the week who would have... So this is the insurance or tax we pay for babysitting. They would have no idea how to run on just a digital platform. If we got rid of cable... It actually ruins the lives of the people who are there all day.
Yeah, but it doesn't, though. It depends on... I mean, my mom doesn't ever watch anything. She'll put on the news, but she would put on the news sometimes.
Yeah, and there's no...
Right, and there's no more news.
So that's where I start running into the calculus. Mm-hmm. So if we got rid of it, we're paying $100 a month, 75 saved, which is pretty good. I mean, that's $750, so that's almost $900, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a really good amount. So you don't have Yankees anymore. I don't have Mets anymore, unless we're stealing feeds from families, which we could do, but there's something weird. I don't mind taking it when I already have cable, but I feel a little bit like a deadbeat.
Yeah.
When I'm taking it for others.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like that we didn't do this for many years. When we moved in, we tried to be cord cutters, and maybe things have gotten better. But on a night where your internet's not working very well, you're not watching TV.
Right.
As well.
Right.
That's an issue. So you have to think, what do we watch? When do we watch it? What do we lose by not having it? There's no more ESPN. Now I could authenticate in. There's no more. So what do you do on Sunday when I want to watch football all day? Yes, I have the Red Zone channel, but I can't watch our local stations. So it's not a true savings of $70 a month because you have to find something that fills in at least to some degree what you're looking for. So YouTube TV is one. $35 a month, really good. But now you're at $135. So you're really only saving now $40.
Right.
And for what?
Right.
For 40 more bucks, you have everything.
Right.
That does get you yes. So you can watch the Yankees. SNY is not streaming. And then you're sitting there going, well, what if the Mets aren't good? Is it a big deal? Which you shouldn't be doing. They have Fox Sports. They have Fox Sports 1, unlimited DVR, and they have all like basic local channels. You have to fling it to Chromecast, which is a bit of an issue, or you have to AirPlay it. It feels a little cheapy, but it's a good deal. Hulu has a live TV product. So within our Hulu app, you can actually buy this product and get TV. $40 a month. No AMC. DirecTV Now, which I had played with a little bit in the beginning when it came out. So it's DirecTV without the satellite. It comes through an app. I got the trial at first. I never paid for it, but you get the month-long trial. The internet stream was going bad. It wasn't working very well. It apparently has stabilized. It's pretty good, but that's $35 to $70 a month.
Right.
And you need to basically, the $35 a month one isn't even that great. I don't even think you get yes. And I like NBA TV, which we don't get on our cable provider, which drives me nuts. I would have to be at the $60 plan to get that. So now you're barely saving anything.
Right.
Cool thing with that is it's $5 for HBO on top of that. Sling TV, that's kind of cheap. That's $20 or $35. Gives you some basics, ESPN. You can get some local, as they say, RSNs, regional sports networks, yes, things like that. You can get NBA TV at a level. Still, $35. And then there's add-ons. Those are the main ones. And so you find yourself going, maybe cable actually is as cheap as it gets.
Right.
Maybe it really is providing.
Right.
And so you go through this whole thing to only land at maybe cable's okay.
Right. And then look at someone like my mom. She doesn't have any of that other stuff, and she's fine.
But but the annoying thing is, all things equal, we still consume streaming maybe 80%, 90% of the time. And really, the TV's only on for other things when we're eating dinner.
Yeah, right.
Or for sports.
Well, it's only for sports when you have it on in the background. But I also watch the news in the morning.
Yeah,
early in the morning.
But it's funny how that works. Because do you ever think about that?
No.
You don't think about the saving? I just like to look through where big costs are. And I guess you come down to it's not that much of a...
It's not that much of a
Now, if we could get rid of the phone and you're at $65 a month and then you get up to $100... I mean, you really need to be saving $70 a month for it to even be worth the pain. And there's always going to be pain that pops up. And now we're using way more...
I know there are a lot of people that don't have a phone. I know I'm the minority. I'm not the majority.
Cable.
No, a phone.
Oh, phone for their house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably worthy. But I think you would have to...
embarrassing for you.
No, it's not embarrassing for me. It's just, what we could do is just get the iPad. We could just get the Apple Watch, $10 a month, and just stick the Apple Watch up there and just take calls through the Apple Watch.
Just from the watch, yeah.
Okay, is there anything else you want to say?
No, this was a surprise.
It was. Thanks for the coffee.
No problem. It was your free one.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.